Dear learners, welcome to live teleconferencing session. In this session, we will discuss about the topic of disaster management. This topic come under the course on BPSG 171 disaster management. Before going into the topic damage assessment, we'll discuss about the relevance of damage assessment in disaster management. Disaster management means it's managing disasters effectively in an effective manner in an efficient manner. Okay, the disaster management consists of three cycles. One is the pre-disaster, during disaster, and post-disaster. In the pre-disaster, mostly it used to come like preparedness, capacity building. It's like a knowledge awareness. It's a capacity building to improve, to aware of the more about the disaster and all. And when you come to the during disaster it used to be response, relief, rehabilitation, reconstruction, and recovery. Response, relief, and rehabilitation and all. When it comes to post-disaster, most of that rehabilitation and reconstruction all used to be there. For example, after disaster, then how will you do how will you go for it? Further exercise and all that. So that for that you need a effective damage assessment. Without proper assessment, you won't able to understand the disaster situation at all. In this situation, so damage assessment is more important part of the disaster management. Like for example, damage assessment is a very important tool for you if you take any retrospective analysis or prospective analysis of disaster. If you want to know exact and you want to know assimilate the data, you want to know impact of the disaster for whatever you know about the disaster, you should need the proper damage assessment and all. So in this damage assessment, what are the things used to be there? The damage assessment, first it used to be there, what happened, first what happened, whether it's an earthquake, whether it's a cyclone, whether it's a landslide, whether it's a snowfall, or whatever it is, whatever the cold wave, heat wave. So first you should know about the what happened, then what the effects were, whether the property has been affected, whether the livelihood has been affected, whether the lives of people has been affected, whether the infrastructure has been affected, whether the lifeline has been affected. So these are the things you should be know that only. So that's what the effects were. And another very important is which areas were hardest hit. Like for example, if you take cyclone, those residing close in sea areas, they used to suffer a lot. Okay, so first you have to know which areas were hardest hit, so that you can understand where you can give more importance on that. Otherwise, you can't. First thing is that you should find out the which areas are mostly hardest hit and all. Then after that, once you find that what are the areas where hardest hit, then you have to find what situation must be given priority. So that must be more important. Like for example, if you take any village, okay, in the cyclone, during cyclone or floods, you want to move the people one area to another area, then what will we do? If you have a data about the elders, if you have a data about the pregnant women, if you have the data about the children, if you data about the vulnerable people, then you can give the first priority to them, so you can act accordingly. Okay, and then another thing is that what type of assistance are needed. For example, local, state, or union. Sometimes you need help from the international level also. Okay, if it is a disaster level is very less, if it is a manageable, that local level people will do it. If it is if couldn't manage the local, then state. If the state couldn't manage it, then central government. So it used to be for all the reason what happened, which areas were affected, and what are the areas hardest to hit, and where we have to given the most priority. So and which government has to come, which level of government has to give for. So all those things is to be determined by the based upon the damage assessment report only. Okay, if you want to make a rapid assessment of areas affected, to know the extent of impact for purpose immediate rescue and the relief operation. Okay, like for example, if you go to earthquake areas, earthquake affected site or flood affected site or cyclone affected side. So if you know, okay, if you done the rapid assessment immediate, you should not wait for more than 2 3 days 3 days and all. You have to do make a rapid assessment of areas, so that you can start the immediate relief and rescue operation. So that once you have done the rapid assessment, you can prepare estimates for the amount of relief to be provided, and what kind of mode of relief, and whether it's a food, whether it is a clothing, whether it is a medicines, whether it's a shelter or essential commodity. Okay, so based upon the estimates only, the amount of relief to be vary from one mode to another mode. And also after that, you can make a detailed assessment regarding requirements for long term relief and the rehabilitation planning. So you may be think that what do you mean by long term relief? Like for example, if you are in a flood or in a cyclone, if you take a flood, if it's a flood inundated area, once you have flood has been drained out, then automatically you can go back to home, you can clean, and you can start at least a normal life. But at the same time, if it are an earthquake, your damage got demolished, or if you are in a cyclone, your property got demolished, then what will you do? So that time you need a long term relief also. You need a same kind of a long term rehabilitation planning also. So you have to identify the focus area of retrofitting actions in the sometime future situation also. It's not like that these are the things will help only. Disaster management documentation is more important. Whatever the lessons you have learned it, you can apply into the in forthcoming disaster, because disasters are unpredictable, it haven't happened anytime also. So always, that's why I always used to say disaster management is a prerequisite for effective disaster response effort. If you want to take any effective decisions, okay, if you want to take any effective decision, the official has been very responsible for organizing post disaster relief operation, and they have to inform about the damage and possible damage. So these are the sometimes they have to repeat and they have to document, so that it won't repeat in the future itself also. So that you need a proper, proper damage assessment report is more important. That's why the appropriate and timely information on about what happened, what needs to be done, and what are the resources are available. Okay, this is more important. First you have to find out what happened and what needs to be done and what are the resources are available. So these are the, these are the timely information you have to provide at that during disaster also, so that these kind of decisions will can save lives, minimize injury, damage and loss, and prevent any other further escalation, and prevent secondary hazards, and inform people who need to how. Like for example, if you are giving a proper information about how many people living that demolished property, so that you can get idea about how many people are stuck inside the building. Okay, and so that you can minimize the injury also, sometimes you can minimize the loss also. You can find out the preventive further any escalation. Like for example, after earthquake sometime eb that electric wire get fired also, and gas cylinder may get burst. So there's kind of a further escalation used to be happen. That's why they used to say the prevent secondary hazards. If you say that for example prevent secondary hazard in the sense in the during flood and cyclone, the latter waterborne diseases used to spread to everywhere. So you need a proper decision you have to take. For that decision, you need a proper report. For that report has to mention about the what happened, what needs to be done, what are the resources are available, and all. For this, you need a well organized response. Okay, well organized response will also help in confidence building and enhancing the credibility of the administration and all. Because without without proper data or proper information, it won't give a confidence to the administration and officials also how to go about it and all. So mostly if you look into that, relief operations are essentially about the management of information and resources. Okay, which is based on the assessment and the report carried out from time to time. Like for example, you just take it any disaster, we used to provide the immediate relief. So immediate relief, what are the things used to be there? We have to give food, clothing, and water, and first aid. These are the information. These are the things we used to have. We used to give. So mostly, what used to happen? These are the item we used to distribute based upon the previous assessment. Like for example, if you go to any village panchayat office, you can have a data about the how many males, how many females, and how many children are there, and vulnerable population, elderly population, and pregnant women are there. So these are the data are there, but you have to update regularly, so that whenever the disaster comes, you can act accordingly, and you can use the data and the data, and you can reach the right kind of people also. And another thing, I mean, if you have a disaster, you want to move people one place to another place, you can't wait for the ambulance used to come from the district headquarters. After that, you can move. So if you have already data, inventory data about the how many cars are there, how many vans are there, how many trucks are there in that village or particular location, it would be easy to carry the people immediately. That's what information is needed at all levels of administration. But the nature of information is varied from one level to another level also. So towards, if you look into that way, disaster damage assessment is a vital tool for the assimilate the extent of a disaster, both short term also and in long term also, and forms the basis for any disaster management and mitigation process action plan used to happen only. Normally, damage assessment used to make a initial and preliminary on-site evaluation of damage or loss that has been, caused by an accident or disaster. Uh, Through this disaster assessment exercise, we can make an attempt to put and record the amount and degree of damage. You have to make a record about the degree of damage, whether it is a severe, whether it is a mild, whether it is a, not that much affected. So, and you have to find out what are the things we have to replace, and how to for restored and salvage. So these are the exercise bring the likely, so that you can do the repair, replacement, and recovery also. So that people used to say, and scholars and the practitioner in disaster madam, they used to say damage assessment is the integral part of facilitating effective and efficient response by government agency and other organization. Okay, so if you want to go about further relief and rescue operation, or whatever it is, first thing you needed is that first you need about the data. So where to go about? For that, disaster damage assessment is the vital tool and all. So, so far we have seen about the basics about the damage assessment. Now we are moving into the what are the elements in damage assessment. First thing is that identification of type of information and the sources of data collection. Okay, so what kind of information you need? Like for example, if any development agency, like if in a health department is come, they have to need their working pattern kind of information is different. Okay, if the revenue people comes, that different data is different. So you have to identify type of information needed, and the sources of data collection also. And you have to collect this data collection through primary and secondary sources. Secondary sources means already we have a data, and we have to do primary data collection, so that we can find out the whether is there any duplication, or whether is there any mismatch and all. Then once you receive the data, you have to analyze those data, you have to give preparation. And another one is the data interpretation, and you have to write a report about that, and you have to bring out the conclusion. So where you have to give more importance and where to go about it and all. Then you have to make a forecast, then recommendation measures for the decision makers, planners, implementers, and community groups and NGOs and all. For example, you can take it that one particular district, they have affected by any cyclone or flood and all that. Okay, so what will happen? Without proper information, the NGOs used to come, they used to distribute water bottle and water bottle. Some NGOs used to provide clothes, some NGOs used to provide food and all. So if you have a data, if you have a assessment report, then what will you do? So that you can say, you can identify that whether the decision maker or government or community groups or NGOs, they can go through it, and they can decide where they have to give more importance and all. So that, so that it will give a one kind of a proper direction to further go about that also. So once you have done those things, you have to do impact. Okay, which hazard had on the most affected area, And again, you have to give needs and priorities for emergency measures to save and sustain survival, and what are the resources available for users, and possibilities for facilitating and expediting long-term recovery and development. And you have to find out the directory information. You have to get the various line departments, in the sense you can say that electricity, telephone, and health and life, you can say that lifesavers department. And habitation detail means you have to get the details about the village, hamlet, and bar details. And you have to find out the village with different types of disaster and a degree of risk. For example, if you are living in a mountain areas, people mostly, they used to continuously affected by the flash flood, landslide, earthquake, forest fire and all. So you have to give a different kind of, you have to give, identify the level of risk, type 1, whether severe, whether it is hard, whether it is medium. And you have to document the historical records of past events, which with the damage details and the details of relief expenditure, how much it has spent the last time when the cyclone has come. And then census data sets, you have to have a agriculture, population, building, various structure details, and also then, so that way, you know that damage assessment is placing a very very important tool and all that only. So that we have seen the various elements of damage assessment. Now we are moving into the what are the dimensions of damage assessment. Okay, damage assessment, if you say, it is a multidisciplinary exercise. That's always I told you, in that it involves officials from the cross section as the experts, and the administrator from revenue, health, engineering, public health, and social scientists, non-profit organization, community, so that you will get a comprehensive account of losses for adequate future mitigation planning. Also, some of the data are you need a baseline data, in the sense you need a maps, population statistics also. So however, it must be supplemented to the real time information, so that it has to be, actually what happened, we already have a real time information. In the previous data, it will used to addition or supplement these data also. And you can have the pre disaster assessment also. So for that, in that one, when it comes to dimensions of the damage assessment, first thing is to find out the nature of the disaster, that is the date, time, and exact location. If you take it about the earthquake, you can find that you can say that the earthquake started from the year, and you can find out the cyclone where it has to formed. And also, so that first thing is that you should know about the nature of the disaster, that is the date, time, and the exact location, and details of the occurrence of the disaster, and regular reports. Like when it comes to, if you go to any coastal area or monsoon time, people used to give regular report, that about update about the rain, and update about the that meteorological department used to work continuously. And they have to provide a expected date and time of restoration as of completion of a particular activity or mission also. So that damage assessment is done through, if you have these kind of a data, damage assessment is done through the data collection and the information assimilation and the dissemination. Here you have to find out the data, how to like you have a data also, information also. So what will you do here? You have to find out data and information is an entirely different thing. Data means it is it includes perception used to be there, numbers used to be there, observation, facts, and figures. But some data sometimes it used to make a conflict with one another. For example, individual used to write different from different. So that what you have to do, the data has to be, you have to make it as a useful data. When you have a make a useful data, then it will become convert as a information. When the information is the meaningful, relevant, and it is to be understandable language, it is about the particular people or particular time and a particular place, then it would become a, that it would be a meaningful one and all. So that once you have a meaningful data and all, the administration or nodal department concerned are to collect all the available disaster relevant information and compile the earliest the concerned officials of the department. That's what we used that government of India or government of any state government, they used to say that you always has to have the regular update about the disaster and all. regular update about the rain, regular update about the weather pattern, regular update about the any kind of accident and all, so that when the administration they can get the available, previously how it happened, so that they can get the related information and the compile it as early as possible, and they can get the support group coordination is very important. Okay, it doesn't mean that only, mostly disaster management is most of the time it used to carried out by the revenue official, but revenue official they used to coordinate only. They need a support group coordination, that is more important. Okay, they only provide the forum with those affected, and they used to share the experience. So the the group has to be, they have to give information also, and they have to transfer in the communication also. Sometimes what will happen, support group sometime in exploit the intense media interest in the disaster campaigning for public injuries, and the lobbying better levels for compensation and safety change also. That also you have to taken care of them also. So once you have collected the damage assessment details and all, the concerned ministry or secretary, department of disaster management, or district magistrate, or district collector, or revenue commissioner, or they are the competent persons to interact with the press and elected media. So these person used to ensure that the actually factually correct and confirmed information is shared with the media. So at the same time, there is no exaggerated version of any event or any criticism of one personal opinion or any kind of disaster they have to give. Okay, so when emergency relief measures have been started based upon the report, that quick assessment is based about the amount of relief material and food stock to reach the disaster area. That is called the rapid damage assessment. There is a two kind of damage assessment report is damage assessment method is there. One is the rapid damage assessment, another one is the detailed damage assessment. Rapid damage assessment means you have to do a quick damage assessment, quick assessment of damage on the basis of amount of relief material and food stocks are reached to the particular area. And then detailed damage assessment is that it is a second level, which you say you need a detailed technical analysis of damage for long term restoration and the rehabilitation work. From a long term perspective, damage assessment scrutinizes the mechanisms of failure that scrutinize the during damage assessment also. If you look into that, some of the official agency for reporting estimates of damage is usually the normally that the damage assessment is to be officially reported by the revenue and the relief department of the state government, and also the authority for distributing that relief to the affected persons. As usual, there is a hierarchy of official who report from the villages, panchayats to black level revenue circle, tahsildars and the subdivision, and finally it reaches to the district and then to the state government. So however, if you look into that, relief agencies including NGOs have all the, they also used to have their own damaging system and consist of the things also. Like for example, you can say that why they want to, like for example, if you take any NGOs, they also do the detailed damage assessment. Like government used to do for that different perspective in the NGOs. Like for example, if you take any NGO, that NGO is working for the women empowerment. That, so their focus is to be women and how they are suffered and all. And another thing is that if any NGO is working for the livelihood, so their assessment report is to be how the livelihood has been affected. So how many people has been affected. So how to improve their livelihood and all. What are the things we can how to bring about the resilience in the livelihood. The same way, if any NGOs working for the children's, likewise it used to differ from one agencies to another agency. Okay, but these are the major things used to be done by the government and all. So mostly we can say that this kind of a framework for damage assessment consists of a two parts. One is the initial situation overview and another one is the need analysis. Okay, the first part, initial situation overview, where you can know that whenever any flood has been affected as cyclone has assessment, the prime minister or the chief minister of the state, they used to do the aerial observation from an aircraft, sometimes satellite photographs and then various other report. Sometimes nowadays we are using the drone also. These are the things used to be called the initial situation overview. So these are the information allows to determine the how what are the necessary action, immediate action to respond to the effects of the disaster. And another one is the needs analysis. When coming to the needs analysis, the damage assessment covers the nature and extent of a disaster, and what are the priorities we have to given to the affected community, particularly about the vulnerable people. Okay, it has to provide the extent and type of damage and identify secondary threat and resource availability also. And finally, the assessment process should be actions, intervention, resources needed to formulate the long term rehabilitation and the development strategies and all. So the mostly the post disaster assessment, completely highlights the damage and impact on various lives also. Like for example, if you take whenever you are making a damage assess plan, you have to make the taking care of the following critical sector, that is, as you have to assessing loss and damage to human life, and assessing damage to housing, and assessing damage to community infrastructure, and assessing damage to environment, and assessing loss of livelihood, assessing the social psychosocial impact of disaster, assessing the impact of disaster on women. So that it is, these are the long term, it is a very long, when you want to plan the long term recovery and rehabilitation plan, then these are the data also more important than one. So towards the end, so damage assessment is the one of the important tool it in the rural during disaster management stage. If you want to improve the efficient and efficiency of the disaster management, and you serve the people, and if you want to provide the immediate relief and recovery options in an efficient manner, the damage assessment is plays a more important role at all. So that's it. We will discuss in another topic in a different session. Thanks a lot.
Do you wish to be part of a television studio like this, or any other media system, or already part of any media system, want to enhance a new set of skills? Welcome to School of Journalism New Media Studies. Here in the School of Journalism New Media Studies, we are offering program for all set of people to learn and enhance the media skills. The vision of School of Journalism and New Media Studies is to generate a new set of professionals in the area of media and communication studies with understanding about role of media in the national development and global understanding. We offer innovative programs in the field of journalism and mass communication that sets the benchmark of high quality learning and teaching process at the national level. We offer these programs across the country with the help of our regional network as well as study center. Same manner, many of our programs are offered through online mode with a sophisticated learning management system. SOGNMS offers programs from PhD in journalism and mass communication till certificate level. We have masters in journalism and mass communication. The eligibility is bachelor's degree, and we are introducing this program in 3 languages: Hindi, Tamil and English. Students from national and international students can join either through online mode as well as in the distance mode. We have 4 postgraduate diploma programs, specialized areas in the field of development communication, digital media, electronic media and journalism and mass communication program. And all these 4 programs are available in distance mode. 2 programs are available in online mode, development communication and digital media. And we have specialized certificate program in community radio. IGNOU employs various media and communication tools for better teaching and learning process. School of Journalism and New Media Studies utilizes this media system for delivering all our programs. Come and join with us for exploring a new career and enhance your media skills.
Namaskar. I, Professor Shachisha from School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies, welcome you all for today's session on energy transition for a low carbon development. Energy is very important not only for developing economy or economic growth, but also for the well-being of human society. We are dependent on energy for our various needs, various sector, whether it is transport, power, building, commercial, or any other sector, energy is imperative. But in today's world, the entire energy system mostly is dependent on fossil fuel. These fossil fuels are responsible for generation of carbon dioxide or responsible for causing global warming or climate change. So when we say energy transition is shifting of energy requirement from the fossil fuel, whether it is oil, coal, or natural gas, to new sources or renewable sources or clean energy sources, whether it is in the form of solar, wind, or bioenergy or green hydrogen, even lithium batteries. So in this session, I'll be discussing about the pathways for energy transition, why energy transition is important and what are the various drivers of energy transition, what is the role of decarbonization, energy security, energy accessibility, and sustainable development goals, especially 7, and India's commitment for low emission or energy transmission or transformation for low carbon development. So to begin with, when we say energy transition basically it is the shift of global energy sector from fossil fuel based system as either oil, coal, natural gas to energy or to renewable energy which are less polluting, which are clean energy. The energy transition is not new. In 2019, there was transition of energy from wood to coal, and in 2020, it was again from coal to other sources. But this transition is important because of the kind of magnitude of climate change the old sources or fossil fuel is causing. We know that this climate change, which is basically affecting all walks of life, there are extreme weather events, whether it is hurricane, disaster, flood, or melting of ice, or effect of this climate change has been observed in each and every ecosystem, whether it is mountain ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem, whether it is in agriculture, fisheries, or any sector as far as effect of climate change is concerned. So there is a need for the energy mix or the sources of energy which are uh, less carbon intensive or which produce less amount of carbon dioxide. So there is a need for low carbon economy. The low carbon economy is less polluting. It has contributed to higher living of people. It has improved the quality of life, and also it is dependent on various type of renewable resources. We all, beside climate change is one of the driver for energy transition, but we have also observed the effect of these climate change or the local pollution. If we talk about the local pollution due to fossil fuel consumption, we have observed the impact of this pollution in health sector also. The worsening of air quality has affected the health of millions of the people. We have observed that there are increase in various problems related to air pollution. So climate change and air pollution. These are the two drivers of energy transition in this era, and this is also very important for the development of low carbon economy. In 2015, in Conference of Party 21, the Paris Agreement was signed, and there is signing of Paris Agreement. The agreement was that the temperature will be below 2 degree centigrade of industrial before industrial revolution, and in COP 26 in Glasgow, carbon neutrality up to 2050 was agreed, and recently in COP or Conference of Party for Climate Change in 27 COP in Ethiopia, this climate technology has been agreed upon. So the energy transition is very important, or is the need of the hour when we talk about the low carbon development or decarbonization or carbon neutrality or zero carbon emission. The substitutes which are used or which will be used in place of fossil fuel, they may not be able to produce the net zero emission, but they gradually will be there is a need for gradual removal of coal-based refineries or thermal power plants, and there is a need of paradigm shift the way energy production, consumption, and resource utilization is perceived. So this is the need for energy transition for a low carbon economy. When we talk about the replacement or substitute of fossil fuel, there are a number of renewable energy like wind energy, solar photovoltaic cell, biomass energy, biofuel, hydropower, concentrated solar power, or there are many bioenergy, traditional biomass. There are a number of renewable energy alternative available which can be helpful or which are being used for energy transition. There are three part of energy transition. One is the use of renewable energy. The second one is, we can say, is the technology, and the third one is capacity building. The energy transition by the use of renewable energy is not only, it talks about the environmental aspect, but it is also required for social sustainability also. Economic sustainability is also one of the aspects. So when there will be use of technology or digitalization of grid, there is social sustainability may be achieved by providing the better services to the consumer. Environmental sustainability will be achieved by providing good air quality, by providing a good quality of life, and also by different grids or different power, so whether it is solar photovoltaic cell or hydroelectric or bioenergy, it will also provide the employment opportunity to the people. And in this way, this energy transition through renewable energy sources will be able to achieve the environmental sustainability, economic development, as well as social sustainability. When we talk about India, if we see the India's energy transition, India is have contributed a very little in the global warming or climate change. When we see the primary energy mix of India's energy transition, you can see that the major amount, more than 44% and 25%, is dominated by coal and oil. The natural gas, modern renewable or transformation losses, it is 9%. The traditional biomass, 13%, natural gas, 6%, and only 3% is used by modern renewable. So major amount of the energy mix in India's energy mix is basically from coal and oil. But India is progressing towards the carbon neutrality as the commitment is in Glasgow COP27 is that carbon neutrality in India will be achieved by 2070. So India has contributed a very little to global warming. Thereby, it will be easier to attain the carbon neutrality in by India or other developing countries. If you see that the contribution according to summary for policymaker and according to IPCC AR 6 2022 working group 3, the contribution of South Asian countries in global warming is only 4%. And if South Asia is only 4%, you can imagine the contribution of India. The India's per capita annual emission is about one third of the global average. If you see, according to this historical cumulative net anthropogenic carbon dioxide emission per region from 1850 to 2019, almost Eastern Asia is having 3 times more contribution, and North America together it is more than 5 times of South Asian country. So India has contributed very little in global warming or greenhouse gas emission. If you look the total greenhouse gases emission, if we exclude LULUCF, that is land use change and forestry, is 2838 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. India's per capita emission is only 2.46 ton carbon dioxide emission in 2019, and you can say it is half of the global average. The global average per capita emission is 4.79 ton carbon dioxide equivalent, so it is almost half per capita consumption. The greenhouse gas emission is about 4%, where the population of India is almost 17% of the world population, but the GSG greenhouse emission from India is only 4%. So India has contributed very little amount in the greenhouse gas emission. If we see the share of cumulative emission of selected countries from 1850 to 219, India has contributed only 4.5% according to Climate Equity Monitor. 46.9% is contributed by United States and China 13.5. Despite these two countries are having the largest population share. So when we talk about energy transition, the energy transition is also required for fulfilling the demand of increasing population. As we know that there is a need to fulfill the energy demand of 700 million people or 7 billion people. So there is requirement of a clean energy or sustainable energy that can fulfill the need of energy demand of these many people. When we talk about the sustainable development goal or global goal 2030, with the 17 goal or 169 target, they are also aiming for achieving a sustainable future. Especially when we talk about sustainable goal 7, that talks about clean energy, and the main aim of this goal is to provide or to ensure that affordable and equitable energy is accessible to everyone, to increase the source of renewable energy, and also it talks about energy accessibility, energy security, and energy efficiency. So when we wanted to achieve the energy transition, the first and foremost thing is decarbonization of energy source. The amount of, even if net zero emission cannot be achieved or may not be achieved, the energy source should be able to produce very low carbon dioxide or carbon. So decarbonization of energy source, increasing operational energy efficiency. The commercialization of new technology, investment in new business model, adapting to new policy and regulation, and managing customer and stakeholder expectation are the key pillars of energy transition. When any country wanted to achieve the net zero emission or carbon neutrality, or wanted to gain the pathways for low carbon development, only the energy availability or resource availability is not sufficient. There is a need for a policy as well as integration of technology is required for energy transition. In this regard, the building blocks of energy transition or India's energy transition to ensure equitable and affordable energy access for all are decarbonization, decentralization, digitalization, and Atmanirbharta. These four building blocks have been mentioned in India's energy policy or long term plans for low carbon emission development, that the affordable energy can be provided or ensured by these four factors: decarbonization, digitalization, decentralization, and Atmanirbhar Bharat. In energy transition, energy pathways, by which pathway we are aiming for energy transition, that also plays a very important role, or technological development or policies. These things play a very important role. Here I have just this is through international the sources International Renewable Energy Agency, and they in this graph roadmap to 250. In this, the a comparison of two energy transition pathway has been shown, and you can see very well that there is a reference case where the one pathway 35 gt per year is produced, whereas in other pathway, that is remap case, only 9.7 gt per year is achieved will be achieved in 2050. So there are responsibility is lies in the renewable energy percentage is 41%, electrification is 13%, and energy efficiency is 4%. So there is a change of 94% CO2 emission reduction from renewables and energy efficiency. So different energy transition pathway are very important when we talk about the energy transition for a low carbon development. Now I will discuss few of the development. For that, India is committed to green energy future. As we know that India is one of the developing economy, and it has required a large amount of energy for its growth and development. And the same time, India is also committed for all the policies, framework, and international agreements related to achieve carbon neutrality, or various methods or technology for climate mitigation and adaptation. In this regard, few initiatives that spearheaded by India to tackle the climate change are International Solar Alliance, that is ISA, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, that is CDRI, Leadership Group for Industry Transition, that is known as LED IT Group. And when we talk about LED IT Group, it is one of the 9 action tracks identified by the UN Secretary General to boost climate ambition and action to implement the Paris Agreement. Likewise, there is National Determined Contribution, NDCs. India is signatory of Paris Climate Change Agreement. There are national determined contribution, but after in 2026, this global Glasgow or COP26, India has modified or updated its national determined contributor. So the main is to put forward and further propagate a healthy and sustainable way of living based on tradition and value and conservation. In this regard, life, that is lifestyle for environment, which was launched by our Prime Minister in Glasgow, it is a very important amendment or very important contribution in this. The Niti Aayog is preparing a document where this lifestyle for environment has been taken a lead role, and when it talks about the change in lifestyle, how the change in lifestyle can affect the environment, can affect the decarbonization, or can help in net zero emission. Our lifestyle, whether it is related to our various sector, fishery, agriculture, the way we dress, the way we take our food or other things, all are dependent on this lifestyle related changes. In the national determined contributor, the emission intensity of the GDP by 45% up to 2030 from 2005 level has been mentioned. Now, there are many policies. When we talk about the energy is required for various sector, but basically for power sector and also the transport sector. When we say the transport sector, there are number of policies India has adopted or formulated for achieving improved efficiency. When we talk about vehicular emission, we know that we have leapfrogged from Bharat 4 stage to Bharat 6 stage. So in that, the emission standard has been checked or has been monitored. There is a vehicle scrappage policy which that talks about the mandatory scrapping of old, unfit, polluting vehicle depending upon the fitness and emission level, and replacement of end of life vehicle. So this can lead to reduction of 15 to 20% of the air pollutant, and it will increase the fuel efficiency. Likewise, India has always advocated the cleaner fuel, whether it is use of biodiesel, green diesel, ethanol, compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas as fuel alternative, and also the national policy on biofuel in 2018 is in place, and national green hydrogen mission is also on place as far as this green fuel is concerned. There are number of policies or number of programs which have been spearheaded or which has been launched in India, but I will mention two programs. One is especially that's called Ujala. Ujala is Unnat Jyoti by Affordable LEDs for All. In this Ujala program, which was launched in January 2015, it provides the LED bulbs, LED tube lights, fan, which has been very efficient for energy efficiency, and through this scheme there is large amount of energy saved. Not only energy saved, the cost is also low, and the COD emission was avoided. The second scheme is PMUI, Prime Minister Yojana, that is related to LPG, where in rural household or in marginalized section, basically they use wood fire fuels or other sources of energy, and it was creating havoc to their health and also the pollution, causing air pollution. So it is the provision of LPG gas, where these rural household or marginalized section will be using LPG. So these were the two yojana which has been used or which has been implemented by government. Now, there are number of strategies for low emission or development transition, whether it is related to low carbon development electric system, expanding renewable, strengthening the grid, or supporting other low carbon technology, etc. But whether it is in transport system or whether it is in power system, there is requirement of the shift in the mindset of the people And also there is a need for policies and program which talks about the clean energy or energy efficiency. If I was discussing about the national policy on biofuel or national hydrogen mission, the national policy on biofuel, which was started in 2018, it aims to achieve 20% blending of ethanol with petrol and 5% blending of biodiesel with diesel by 2030. So the target of 10% blending of ethanol with petrol has already been achieved, which is much faster than its envisaged timeline, and 20% ethanol blending has been advanced by 2030 to 2025 or 26. So, in that way, through this national policy on biofuel, the total reduction in CO2 emission, which has been achieved in the last 7 years, due to the use of ethanol blended petrol has been estimated to 22.6 metric ton of carbon dioxide. Same way, green hydrogen and also the nuclear power is also a very important source when we talk about the energy transition. The India has announced the National Hydrogen Mission in 2021. This mission aims for meeting all the mitigation goals and also making India an export hub for green hydrogen and green ammonia. So it aims for the production of 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030, and the related development of renewable energy capacity is required. There are various technological innovation when we talk about the green energy. Like I have discussed about the biofuel or solar photovoltaic cell or nuclear power and other solar, wind, and other sectors. But as I was telling, the one of the very important thing when we are talking about the energy transition or when we are talking about the low carbon development or decarbonization or net zero emission, one of the very important is the mindset or how to sensitize the people or how to change the mindset of the people or orient the people about their lifestyle, how much their lifestyle is contributing towards the energy, what are their carbon footprints. So in that way, the lifestyle for environment is very important, which has three important aspects, that is changing demand, changing supply, and changing policy. This lifestyle for the environment is basically aims for energy consumption, water consumption, reduce consumption of single-use plastic, adopting sustainable food system, reduction of waste, that is Swachhata action, adoption of healthy lifestyle, and reduction in e-waste. So just to conclude this session, I'll be saying that energy transition is now it is very essential. The climate change impact we have observed everywhere. The world is moving toward the climate neutrality. It is moving toward the net zero emission and also the low carbon development pathways. India is also taking a lead into this direction, but alone we cannot achieve this energy transition or net zero emission. For these various international agreements, joining hands together, sharing of technology and policy and other things are required. For this international negotiation or the climate financing, carbon credit, exchange of carbon credit and other clean development mechanism are required. So energy transition is not only will help in achieving the sustainable development goal 7, but it will also be helpful in achieving other sustainable development goals, whether it is related to clean energy, whether it is related to resource consumption, it is related to climate action, affordable energy, and so on and so forth. So with this, I once again welcome you all or thank you all for joining this session. Namaskar. Are you a fresh graduate? Do you want to fulfill your educational aspiration by pursuing higher education in various interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary areas like environmental science, environment and occupational health, philosophy, sustainability science, folklore and culture studies? If yes, the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies offers various programs like Master's Program, Graduate Program, Postgraduate Diploma, Certificate and Appreciation Program. The school offers 5 Master's Program. Master of Science, Environmental Science. The eligibility criteria for MSc Environmental Science is Graduate in Science, B.Tech, BE, Agriculture Graduate, Forestry Graduate and Veterinary Graduate. School also offers Masters in Environment and Occupational Health, Masters in Sustainability Science, Masters in Philosophy and Masters in Folklore and Culture Studies. The eligibility criteria for these 4 Masters program is graduate in any discipline. The school also offers various socially relevant and need-based PG Diploma program like PG Diploma in Sustainability Science, PG Diploma in Environment and Occupational Health, PG Diploma in Folklore and Culture Studies and PG Diploma in Migration and Diaspora Studies. The school also offers PG Certificate in Climate Change and Avshist Prabandhan mein Praman Patra. The school also offers 2 doctoral programs, PhD in Environmental Science and PhD in Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies. The school offers various innovative technologies and multimedia for providing a very excellent student support system. The study material is of high quality. The learner support is provided through Gyan Darshan, Gyan Vani, IRC, Swayam Prabha and Swayam channel of IGNOU. For more detail, please log in to IGNOU website. For online admission in these programs, visit school site and also the Samarth online education portal of IGNOU. So please join these programs and fulfill your educational aspiration.
Namaskar. Welcome to this session on Master of Arts in Environmental and Occupational Health and Postgraduate Diploma in Environmental and Occupational Health. I am Professor B. Rupini. I would like to give a brief introduction about the role of green chemistry in environmental health. We all know that as the years are passing by, and also still the world is battling with ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and also resurgent fires and also the crisis in climate conditions and also environmental pollution and finally the waste management. There are so many key themes are there to explain and also to envisage a better environment like sustainability, stewardship and also the science. Sustainability is mainly concerned with the interaction of the people with the environment, and stewardship is concerned mainly with the many principles, ethical as well as moral principles, to guide the students, guide the people also how to interact with the environment in the private as well as in the public behaviors. And we all know that the science, it gives and also focuses and also gives us a better understanding of the how the nature functions and also how people also interact with it. So for all these problems, a single solution is not at all possible. So green chemistry is one of that approaches we can consider to keep the environment healthy and simultaneously the human life also. And we know that there are so many commodities for better things for better living. So to understand the environmental pollution and also to approach are the benign ways to combat this environmental pollution, green chemistry is one of the approaches. So I would like to bring about what is green chemistry and then what is the role of green chemistry approaches are the fundamentals or the concept of green chemistry to combat the environmental pollution. So if we will look into that, what is exactly the green chemistry? Green chemistry is nothing but it is a procedure or designing any of the product or the procedure to reduce and eliminate the use of the generation of the hazardous substances as well as the chemicals. Mainly, basically, the green chemistry is considered to be and truly interdisciplinary in nature. That means interdisciplinary with the domains of chemistry and also the domains of other disciplines like engineering and toxicology and also the ecology. The chemist will design any of the process or any of the catalysts which are used in any of the reaction mixture, and the use as well as the generation of the production line will be processed by the engineers, and the toxicologist and the ecologist, they will provide the information about the byproducts toxication or the toxic effects on the environment as well as the humans. So this is a truly interdisciplinary science or the approach we can say. And then why do we need the green chemistry to combat the environmental pollution? So as we have seen that the commodities which we are using regularly, they are basically from the non-renewable resources like coal and petroleum. And this had a number of negative effects, including a rapid depletion of the non-renewable resources and also increase in the petroleum cost and also increase in the greenhouse gases and also the bioaccumulation of the toxic compounds. So to avoid these non-renewable resource compounds or the products or the substances in daily usage of the commodities as well as in the pharmaceutical industries, we need some alternative. So this is one of the alternative to replace the non-renewable resource products like with the biodegradable and as well as the renewable resources. So for that, this green chemistry is required. And what are the goals of the green chemistry? There are a number of goals. These goals to avoid the hazardous substances and also to reduce the adverse effects on the environment and to minimize the byproducts, to develop less toxic compounds and to reduce the requirements of the hazardous solvents and to improve the energy efficiency technology and to develop efficient as well as the reliable methods. So to achieve these goals, some principles should be required. So Paul Anastas, he is the father of green chemistry. He has given some principles. There are 12 principles are there to achieve the goals of the green chemistry to combat the environmental pollution, especially from the chemistry point of view. Number 1 is prevention of waste. Second principle is based on the maximize atom economy. And the third is based on less hazardous chemical synthesis. And the fourth one is safer chemicals and products, and fifth one is safer solvents and reaction conditions, and increase energy efficiency use renewable feedstocks, avoid chemical derivatization, and use catalysis and design chemicals and products to degrade after use. And the 11th principle is analyze in real time to prevent pollution. And the final principle is minimize potential for accidents. That means all these 12 principles, if we will use as a mandatory in any of the manufacturing products or in any of the synthesis of the chemicals or drugs. So these are the mandatory principles. Now we will look into the one after the other of these principles and then what is the significance of this one. If we will look into the first principle, that is the prevention of waste or byproducts. So any synthetic method you have to design in such a way that there should not be any waste or no waste we can consider. Instead of cleaning up the waste after it is formed, it is very difficult to clean up and also it is expensive. So in the designing stage itself, the chemist should design in such a way to, by using the catalyst, to reduce the amount of the reagents which are used in the reaction process. And if we will consider the second principle, that is the atom economy. Atom economy, it is a concept of green chemistry. So the main objective of this concept is to conduct a chemical reaction where all the atoms that go into the process that come out either incorporated in the byproduct or especially, of course, in any of the reaction byproducts are there. But this concept, especially in the green chemistry, is mainly for the all reagents which are used in particular reaction should be incorporated in the product. So it is not possible sometimes, but if the byproduct is there, the byproduct should be either marketable or it should be biodegradable. So in such a way, the scientist should think before designing any of the procedure or any of the product. So that is the atom economy. That is the desired mass of the desired product upon the mass of the reactants. That is a formula, general formula they have given. That is one of the matrices also for the green chemistry. And if we will consider the third principle, that is a minimization of the hazardous products. So wherever there is a possibility is there, then there should be a minimization of the hazardous products or the hazardous reagents which we can be used. There are so many examples are there. For example, if we will go for the hydroxy esters, from the conversion of hydroxy esters to the amino alcohols, so there should be using the diborane gas. So it is highly expensive, and diborane gas, when it is released into the humid air, it caught fire. So to minimize the accidents also, the scientists have developed, with the help of the engineers or chemical engineering, they have used the diborane should be released in situ instead of adding from the other side. So that procedure, that engineering design itself helps the reaction into a environmentally benign, and also it is a synthetic legacy. So that means the 5-step reaction has been reduced into 3-step reaction, and also the cost also reduced to 60%, and the production rate is also increased to 50 to 80%. So in such a way, one has to design a chemical reaction for any manufacturing industry or any of the pharmaceutical industry. So minimization of hazardous products. So in that there are so many steps are there. One is recycling. That means whatever it is the product, whatever it is the byproduct, we can say that should be recyclable in nature, or whether you have to reduce at the source or we have to modify. So that means once the ecologist, in the beginning we thought that there is a chemist, engineers as well as the toxicologist and then ecologist. If suppose the toxic effects of a particular compound or the particular product has an adverse effect on the environment as well as the human beings, on the basis of their report, again the scientist has to redo the entire exercise to product modification itself. So this is the minimization of the hazardous product. If we will consider the fourth principle, that is the designing safer chemicals. As we have seen that diborane gas is highly inflammable in nature. So to minimize the chemical accidents, So one has to think about the safer chemicals. So chemical products should be designed in effect with the desired function while minimizing their toxicity. Not only the reagents and also the products or the byproducts or the waste products which are generated in any of the particular reaction, that should be definitely go into the either the groundwater, it will contaminate the groundwater, or otherwise it landed up in the landfills. It is toxic in nature and toxic to the general environment and toxic to the human beings as well. And fifth principle is the safer solvents as well as the auxiliaries. The auxiliary substances like solvents which are used are the separation agents, are the reagents, and also the catalyst, which are most of the 99% of these solvents are carcinogenic in nature. They are not at all environmentally benign. So alternative solvents are there, ionic liquids are there, supercritical carbon dioxide, supercritical water, and also mostly there are no solvent or a minimum solvent reactions are also can be designed. So microwave reactions are there, sonification reactions are there by using the microwave and also by using the electrochemistry principles. So one has to think before designing any of the product or designing any of the reaction. That should be more important. And the sixth one is design for the energy efficiency. So in the beginning itself, the engineers, they will draw a line for the production line to minimize the energy consumption. So the heating, cooling, stirring, distillation, compression, pumping, separation, all these are the regular procedures for any of the wet lab experiments. So for that energy is required. So for the energy requirement, the burn the fuels, fossil fuels, again it is non-renewable resource, and also that releases the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that causes the global warming. So to avoid the entire procedure, one has to design in such a way to decrease the energy consumption. And the energy requirements of the chemical process that should be again recognized for their environmental as well as the economic impacts, that should be minimized. And synthetic methods should be used or conducted in such a way that normal room temperature and pressure should be used. And the next principle, if we will think about, that is the use of renewable feedstock. So the alternative for the non-renewable feedstock is the renewable feedstock. Here I have given one example that is the raw material or the feedstock. It is just like it is this PLA pellets. All these are polylactic acid, which is a major component in the plastic industry. So suppose if you will synthetically, if you will generate or the manufacture this polylactic acid, you have to use a lot of obnoxious chemicals, and also they are highly hazardous in nature, not only to the scientists, but it is also for the general environment and also to the human beings. So instead of going for the synthetic or the conventional methods, it is a greener synthesis by using the cornstarch. So that is most important and also encouraging factors to prepare the polylactic acid, which is used in the polymers, that is in the plastics. So it is the cornstarch, and again and then extracting the lactic acid by using the polylactic acid pellets, and also here it is always from the renewable feedstock. Why? Because the designing should be always cradle to cradle. It should not be cradle to grave. That means once we will consider any of the chemical compound, its life cycle assessment, or if we will see the inventory of that particular chemical, how much life cycle it has. That means whether it is a recyclable, or it is only one time recyclable, or if it is cradle to grade, how to dump into the specific landfills and how to dispose it off. So that is the biggest challenge for the entire scientific fraternity. So instead of that, biodegradable as well as the marketable products should be used from the renewable feedstock. And the eighth principle of this green chemistry is reduction of the derivatives. In most of the reactions or most of the scientific process, they have more than 10 steps. And also they have to protection as well as deprotection because of their toxicity. So that should be avoided. So that's why derivatization should be avoided or minimized if not possible, because the steps require the additional reagents which are hazardous in nature. And definitely it will generate lot of toxic waste. And it is also, toxic waste is also, again, it is a biggest challenge. And if we will consider the ninth principle, that is the catalysis. So catalytic reagents are superior to the stoichiometric reagents. That means the chemist should design and think about the catalyst which should minimize the percentage of the chemicals which are used in the particular reaction. Obviously, once the reagents are the moles of the reagents are decreased or reduced, automatically the reduction or the byproducts are also reduced. So the catalyst, normally we will use this supercritical carbon dioxide, we will use these ionic liquids, and in my laboratory also I have used the ionic liquids. So which to minimize the waste, and also it is 7 times recyclable catalyst. So most important is the catalytics reagents which should not be hazardous in nature, and also this environmentally friendly. Even though if we will discard that catalyst, it should not harm the general environment or it should not pollute the groundwater. And the 10th principle is designing of the degradable products. What we have thought of that? The chemical product should be designed, that is the end product, it should be cradle to cradle, it should not be cradle to grave. That means the products, the byproducts which are used or which are generated in any of the reaction, that should not be waste. That means it should be used as a byproduct for the marketable byproduct, or it should be biodegradable, or we have to generate it as for the some other purposes. So the degradable products only we have to concentrate on that. If the byproduct is not there, then it is 100% greener reaction. And if we will consider the 11th principle of the green chemistry, that is a new analytical methods. We have already discussed the new analytical methods. There is a significance of new analytical methods that should be developed to allow for the real time. That means we can't wait. That means that the reaction mixture or the reaction procedure should be linked up with the monitoring as well as the control prior to the formation of the hazardous substances. If half of the reaction has been done, then we can understand that what are the products and then how much the reaction proceeded and then what were the products so far formed. So if that monitoring system is allowed, then we can understand that whether hazardous substances are produced or not. If suppose if we have any chance, if we will get to know that the monitoring system is showing some other hazardous substances peaks, then we can understand and then we can stop that reaction at that particular point and then we have to redesign. So always the new analytical methods should be used. And the last principle of the green chemistry, that is a safer chemicals for the accident prevention. There are so many hazardous chemicals are there. The working scientists, the bench workers, students, and also the workers, those who are working in the pharmaceutical industry, everyone are exposed to the hazardous chemicals. Some may definitely it is endocrine disruptors. And most of the chemicals which are the aromatic in nature, mostly benzene, it is carcinogenic in nature. So perc, that is also used in the dry cleaning, that is also carcinogenic in nature. So for using these analytical substances also, they have to have the environmentally benign safer chemicals to use or to product any of the manufacturing industry. So that is also most important to avoid the chemical accidents, to avoid the chemical spills, explosions as well as the fires. So now all together, all these 12 principles of green chemistry are only to use to protect the environment and also further the human health. So for that, the gist of this environmental green chemical or the green technologies, there is a significance mnemonic we have made, the scientific community. That is, S stands for select direct analytical techniques, I stands for integrate analytical process and operations, and generate little waste and treat it properly, and also never waste energy, implement automation and miniaturization of methods. That means you have to minimize the number of steps, and also favor reagents from the renewable resources, increase safety for operator, that is also most important, carry out in situ measurements. What we have seen that example, that diborane incidents, and also avoid derivatization to minimize the reaction as well as minimize the hazardous compounds, and note the sample number and size. That means we have to use number of analytical approaches, whether we have to go for the wet lab experiments, or we have to go for the computational theoretical experiments, and also choose the multi-analyte or the multi-parameters. And finally, the E stands for eliminate or replace toxic reagents. So this is the entire gist of the green chemistry principles in the green analytical chemistry experiments. And now we have to see that green chemistry research challenges, whether the awareness is there in the scientific fraternity, or whether it is expensive, how far it is coming into the practice. So oxidation and reduction, that is using safe and non-toxic reagents, and bromination, avoiding molecular bromine, and reactions which are avoiding the release of toxic gases like hydrogen cyanide, hydrogen chloride, ammonia, and then chlorine, and also alternatives for the reagents like phosgene, potassium cyanide, and then aluminum chloride. And there are also number of approaches are there. Novel reactions using enzymes. Always it is safer as well as better side by using the microbes with the potential commercial applications instead of using the conventional solvents, and efficient splitting of water by the visible light. And there are educational challenges also. So there is a systemic recognition of the toxicity as a physical and then chemical property, and we have to understand the development and utilization of green practical laboratory experiments is we have started this type of green chemistry principles as well as the green experiments in the laboratories also. And also education of legislators on the benefits of the green chemistry or the green environmentally benign are the safer routes for the manufacturing. And the implementation challenges are also there. There should be a flexibility in regulations, and also tax incentives for the implementing cleaner technologies for the industries, and research programs that facilitate technology transfer among academic institutions and also government and the industry, and patent life extensions for the cleaner process optimization. These are the implementation challenges, and also sometimes it is incentives for the scientific fraternity. And with these, I would like to conclude. Learners as well as the all academics, those who are working for the environmental sector, green chemistry is not at all a solution to all the environmental problems, but the most fundamental approach to prevent pollution on the molecular scale. So, as an environmentalist, and I would like to provide you the challenges and also the solutions as an academician. So you have to understand the green chemistry as well as the role of green chemistry to protect our mother nature from the environmental pollution and for the depletion of the natural resources, and also alarming crisis of the climate change. With this, I would like to conclude. In the next session, I would like to come up with some other important topic. Thank you.